Now, it wouldn't be a stretch to say that Star Wars hasn't been great in recent days. From a very mediocre trilogy that, while it holds a special place in my heart, is objectively bad, to the oversaturation of having 6 million new products in between every other product. Seriously, Rise of Skywalker came out in 2019, and since then, in just 4 years, we have had 6 major products, not even including spin-offs like shit like the Lego movies. One of which is a Disney Junior show that if you go on the Star Wars Twitter and find advertising for this, the top comment will just be a gif of Anakin killing the younglings. And the previously mentioned things, some are good, like The Mandalorian, or the first 2 seasons. I guess I haven't watched 3, but I heard it isn't good. Andor, which I hear is some of the best Star Wars we've had in years, which is cool because I thought the show would flop. It was a weird spin-off. I thought it'd be terrible. I guess it's good. In my script, it auto-corrected to and/or, so I had to re-record what and Star Wars Visions, which is cool because it's basically Love, Death, and Robots, and that show is really, really, really good. But man, the Obi-Wan show, it was terrible. I dropped it after 3 episodes. Because I was so bored, and while I like it more than most, I can point out that the Book of Boba Fett had 2 really good episodes, and the rest was just mediocre. So with all that mediocre mess, 2019's Jedi Fallen Order was a surprise. A game that had similarities to that same year's Game of the Year, Sekiro, that respected the Star Wars IP, and it felt fun to play. It had a good story, and even though it's a joke of how many people survived Order 66, back in 2019, the only major things we saw pre-New Hope, but after Revenge of the Sith, was Solo. Which, come on. It doesn't matter. That movie sucks. And Rebels, which, by the way, is good, and please watch it, because it's better than Clone Wars. So, the idea of playing as a hidden Jedi who comes back to the Force and learns to stand out instead of hiding was a great formula for the Star Wars series and felt new and fresh. I realize that's like the entire premise of the original trilogy, but Luke didn't know he was a Jedi, okay? Come on. Cal was a Jedi. He learned to become a Jedi again. That's more what I'm talking about. Now, the game obviously wasn't perfect. The story, a bit rushed, and the gameplay felt like it could be more. It felt like a prerequisite to a better game. But we're just in luck, because 4 years later we received Jedi Survivor, a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. Now, I love Jedi Fallen Order, and Jedi Survivor was one of the games I've been the most excited for ever. I woke up at 5 a.m. before school on a Friday to play this, and while I was exhausted, it was worth the 2 hours of playtime. So no, I have finished the game, done a decent chunk of side content, and have done a lot. So I think I can make a pretty concise review of this game and whether you should get it or not. Before we start, I want to say 2 things. First, no spoilers. I will use gameplay demo stuff taking place on Kobo, so anything that has been revealed I will talk about. The blaster stance being one of them, and talking about how huge the game is. And the other thing I want to talk about is I'm going to separate this into 3 sections similar to the Dead Island 2 video: gameplay, story, and technical aspects. Okay? Okay. Let's hop in. Now, Jedi Fallen Order had fun gameplay with you receiving force moves such as pull, push, slow, and all that, along with a huge skill tree that let you do insane combos. One of my favorite things about Jedi Survivor is that they kept all major abilities, basically just getting rid of your combos and making you unlock them again, which is fine since you keep literally everything else. Speaking on combos, the skill tree is humongous. Since there are so many more stances, about 2 sections of the skill tree in this game is equivalent to the entirety of the original game skill tree, which is insane. And don't check the math on that. I'm probably right, okay? Don't question me. And on the topic of stances, there are 5 instead of the original game's 2.5-ish. In the original, you had the single blade, and near the end you received a double blade, and also a move that didn't let you use 2 blades, but just split it into one big swaying attack. However, in this game you keep the single, double, and you can use the double blade split like in the first game, as well as having the blaster stance and the fist stance, which is a spoiler. This opens up so many gameplay opportunities since each stance is so unique and different. So let's go into them real quick. Single is well-rounded. Double is good for crowd control. Split blade is super quick but low damage and can cancel mid-move. Blaster's range is far but also has a lower damage. And the fifth stance is high damage but slow. Get all that? Okay, cool. This leads to you having a bunch of fun opportunities of cross-use and doesn't single these moves out. I said double blade was crowd controlled, but I used blaster for crowd controls, and the fifth one for bosses, which led to really interesting quick range and heavy damage, and you could do so much more. They're not just like stereotypes per blade, they're unique, but you can use them in all scenarios. Now I've been blabbering about the lightsabers themselves, but what about how you use them in combat? And is it better? Oh yes. Major complaints of the first game was the fact that you fought stormtroopers like 30% of the time, and random animals for like 70% of the time. Well, this game you fight random animals way less, and droids and blasters way more, which is more fun and leads to more fun opportunities. The B1 battle droids still have some hilarious lines reminding me of the prequels, and all of this leads to having more engaging and funny fight scenarios as you launch a droid off a cliff and he screams his lungs out. It's hilarious. Now, I've got my first complaint revolving around the enemies, which is the difficulty. This is a problem that also plagues Sekiro too, so listen along if you had a problem with Sekiro. I chose the second hardest difficulty when playing Jedi Survivor, and man, this game was not ready for it. And by it, I mean just like all gameplay, multiple probability, this is not in script, I just like, the difficulties are way off balance. And you know what's funny? This game probably has the best multiple difficulties in all of gaming, since it doesn't make the game last longer, like by just giving everyone way more health. It just makes it so that enemies destroy you and it's harder to parry. Like I said, normally developers in multiple difficulties, they just make enemies tanky and do more damage and destroy your damage and defense. But no, Jedi Survivor just said, we're gonna make just the enemies harder, which is nice. However, I don't think these areas were intended for this, since there was more than one occurrence in this game where I just got bombarded with 6 million enemies who I can't parry that well, gather around me and hit me 6 million times, and I can't leave because the game doesn't work, and I'm stuck, and I'm fucking It just isn't fair, and I feel like they should have made 3 difficulties instead of 5 and focused on those. A story one, balanced one, and one that would kick your ass, so the difficulty feels more natural since they focus on both of these. Honestly, like, the difficulties are well made and the bosses are really fun, but it's just like, when you're in an area that was clearly intended for normal mode, since there are so many enemies that you would just go through, but you can't parry them, you're just getting stuck in a corner and you're getting hit a million times. So it doesn't feel like you're having fun, which is what Sekiro did at some points. There would be just a million enemies that you couldn't handle since you had to parry exactly on time. It's just not fair. But besides that, I just want to talk about some super nice changes that make the game better. All the new finishers are brutal and super fun to use, and in the topic of brutality, the dismember on stormtroopers, while not accurate, is super good and adds that little ounce. Not change, but chests are back, and along with that, the world's bigger and way better than before. If you got lost in Zepho, you will get lost in Kobo, because there is so much to do and explore that you can't handle it, but you still have so much fun. Hey, sorry, off script real quick. I was just talking about chests, and that reminded me that I even talk about cosmetics. Cosmetics are way better. There's so much more to do, so much fun stuff, and all the variety is crazy that it makes you want to search chests, because you're not just going to get a different color palette for BD1 or a different poncho. You're going to get all this different stuff, and all the new stuff and all the crazy stuff you could do is awesome. Like, I built a lightsaber that I'm legit proud of, and I think is really, really cool. So yeah, cosmetics, good job. Also, you can find so many interesting overworld bosses that will be so well designed that you're surprised and amazed that this is side content. And on the topic of bosses, while I don't want to talk about any, there are some great ones that have such fun designs and concepts. Like, the bosses in this, like, they're not Dark Souls level of well designed, but there are some really, 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 really well designed ones. Yeah, but overall, There's just so much good new stuff, as the immensely improved gameplay, the amazing world and the enemy design, and all the new content is fantastic and worth the price. Now, obviously, I can't go into depth into the story, but I will say that it's better than the first one. My main problem with the first, and this isn't huge, is the fact that it felt quick. You and your team went to Bogano, to Zepho, to Kashyyyk, to Zepho, to Kashyyyk. And after that, it feels right. But honestly, going back and forth is hard, and doesn't feel extremely rewarding. Also, in the first game, they didn't develop everyone super well, besides Cal, who is very interesting character, and I'll talk about him in a bit. But the rest of the crew, Grease, Seer, and especially Marin, felt underdeveloped, since she is literally there for the final mission, which, you know, was for plot convenience. And since these characters weren't developed, when they tried to talk to each other like they had known each other forever, it just bothered me. Seriously, when characters who aren't close act like best friends, I hate that kind of writing. It shouldn't, but it pisses me off. And I feel bad saying they're underdeveloped, because Seer wasn't. Sorry on my part. Her story is very good, but Grease and Marin are bad. Their stories, they didn't have any. I mean, Marin did, but it was super short, and she didn't feel like she should have been in the Mantis crew. But besides them, the other good character was the second sister, but that's also connected to Seer, so whatever it does. How is Jedi Survivor better? Well, I think it stems from the point that you can feel the chemistry and how these people's interactions feel natural now. I guess I'm not really talking about the story, I'm kind of more talking about the characters, but shh. I love the characters in this game, so please don't hurt me. I'll give a summary, which is that the story is much more intriguing and has way better set pieces, along with some great twists. But back to the characters, because they're what I really want to talk about. Grease is still pretty much not important, but whatever, he's our pilot, and has a cantina, and he's much more of a father figure to Cal, so at least he feels like he's doing a little more. Seer is actually less important, but her mission is interesting, and also, she's bald now. Marin is probably my second favorite of the Mantis crew in this, and while I can't go into detail why she is just so much better, she's just in a much more bigger role. It's so adorable. She gets everything now. She's a little snarky. It's adorable. Also, she has short hair now. And finally, let's talk about Cal. Cal is one of my favorite Jedi in the entire series, played expertly by Cameron Monaghan. Am I butchering that? Hold on.
Cameron Monaghan.
Monaghan. Okay, my bad. I'm sorry. And actually, let's go over how amazing all of these actors are. Shout out to Deborah Wilson, Tina Evelell, I think that's how you say it. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. And Daniel Roebuck for playing such an amazing Mantis crew. And Noshir Dalal, I'm sorry again if I'm butchering that. Cody Fern and DC Douglas for playing amazing side characters who have so much fun personality. But back to Cameron Monaghan, who you probably know from Shameless and Gotham, showing how much range this guy truly has. He plays a crazy psychopath, and he's the Joker, and some white dude. I don't know. I haven't watched Shameless. And a heroic Jedi. His progression across all his roles is insanely crazy. Cal just gives us such an interesting essence, and like his battle with Gil in the first game of Jaro Tapal, he battles something else in this, giving an ongoing battle across the whole game, which makes for a more interesting story. See, they made it more. So yeah, the characters and plot lines are amazing and really, really well written. Again, is good and so much better than the original. So if all this is so good, why is the game so hated? Oh. Yeah, before we go into the main topic, let me say something real quick. This game is beautiful and features amazing graphics with such intense detail that it's amazing. But life isn't perfect. And, holy shit. Can we please have a game that releases in an okay state? Please. So, yeah, this game didn't launch in a perfect state. I think the real deal breaker for me was the fact that this game ran like shit everywhere. Now, obviously, PC ran worse since it just ate VRAM, and cards like even the 4090 couldn't run this game due to its extremely poor optimization. But even on things like PS5, which is what I played on, this game didn't run perfect. On Kobo, I thought that I was running at like 40 FPS because of how big it was, but when I got to a smaller, more linear level similar to the first game that ran at like 25 FPS, I realized how bad this was. And you know what's sad? Is that we are just ready for this. We prepare for this shit like this, and it's not even surprised, which is so sad. We should care, but since this is so often now, we can't. And it hurts since the game is so good. And I know it's making it sound like people didn't care. Of course, people are fucking outraged. But, like, this wasn't stemmed up to a, oh, God, this game has such bad optimization. It says, oh, God, not again, which shouldn't happen. I kept swapping through FPS, and that just makes your gameplay feel so much worse. It makes you feel so choppy. And PS5 got the stable frame rate, so I can't even imagine what it was like to play this game on PC. And if you're curious on why I'm surprised about the PS5, well, it should be obvious. On PC, you can have different specs, different things, all the different stuff, so it can be more work to optimize it for all those different things. But on PS5, you have the same hardware throughout every single console, so you only have to adapt that one system, so when you can't even optimize that, you know the game is half-baked. This game should have been delayed again, but their CEO, I believe, told them not, which pisses us off. But you gotta look at the facts. If they delayed, there would be some huge competition, such as Tears of the Kingdom on May 12th and other games, I guess. I don't know. I think the EA guy was just scared of Tears of the Kingdom. So it was douchey and not cool, but whatever. I guess we'll get patches, which is the best we have. By the way, I'm not defending EA, and anyway, I hate EA. They're like one of my least favorite gaming companies, and I don't blame. And this wasn't cool at all. But I'm pretty sure developers were like, we need time, and their fucking CEO just said no. So thanks EA. Thanks Disney for shutting down LucasArts, who put time and care into every single game, and outsourcing all your things to one of the worst gaming companies ever. Thanks, Mouse. But we are on technical aspects, so bugs weren't evident for me, and I think those weren't huge, however. But I did get stuck twice, so I just needed to quit and save. So yeah, no, I didn't really have any bugs. That's obviously the technical aspects would be talking about how the whole game's performance, drama, and all that. But I think it's important to point out how beautiful this game is and how much hard work did go into it. But it is truly unacceptable, the presentation this game was given to us in. I love this game, and despite the flaws mentioned and some flaws not mentioned, I don't think we have had as good a sequel in a game like this in a while. And this game is definitely a bright spot for Star Wars this year, and still show that Star Wars is worth a damn and that they can put out good shit. Yet, we shouldn't have been delivered a game in such a state, but sometimes you just have to suck that shit up and realize that we have to keep moving. I'm not saying what EA did was cool, but just, we have to keep moving. And if you take the amazing aspects of this game, we have a super fun and intriguing game with flaws. This game is like a 7.5, 8 in its current state. However, when everything is fixed, a 9 comes from me. That could come from any Star Wars fanboy, including myself, but who cares? It's a good game. The moral of the story is that you play Jedi Survivor, and you play that for hours until Tears of the Kingdom comes out. And then you play that for hours. And you don't play any other games. And most importantly, never play fucking Redfall.